Welcome to our 9th monthly Orienteering USA Forum. We have Mary Jones of OK and Stephanie Ross of OSIN to present about their experience promoting navigation sports to women. We're going to have Mary present first, then do questions, then Stephanie, then questions again. If you could keep quiet while they're presenting and keep your microphone muted, it would be appreciated. Although if you want to put comments, text comments into the chat, go right ahead. When we get to the question and answer sessions, please use the hand icon to raise your hand, and I'll call on people, attempt to call on people in the order they do so. I'll also look through the text messages for questions that people are shy about verbalizing. Just a note, as usual, we're recording this for people who want to watch it later. So if you're not comfortable with that, lie low to the extent you feel comfortable with, or leave the call if necessary. Mary, over to you.
Okay. Present. And put this in slideshow. All right. Well, welcome everybody. I'm Mary Jones. You can find me on Attack Point as map runner. And I've been orienteering for 40 years as part of 3 clubs. And the fun fact is I've orienteered in 46 states so far. And I'm going to here tonight to talk to you about what we've done at Orienteer Kansas and how we focused on increasing women's participation in our local events. So this began with me looking at some data and seeing there weren't enough women at especially the national level, and looking at the 2018 OUSA rankings, I saw that only 31% were women over age 18. So that seemed odd to me, or not right. I wanted it to be closer to 50%. And what could we do about that? Also, I must admit, at the local level, there was a little bit of a personal thing here. I was looking for a few more women to join me on the advanced course at our local events. It would have been nice to have some more people running with me on that course. So what did we do? We worked on a program for increasing the number of women coming to our local events. And what did we expect is that if we offered women-only training and use women's images and focusing in our marketing, then more women would come and participate, and some of them would become more competitive. And by competitive, I mean either attending national events or running on the advanced and training and working hard to improve their orienteering. First question I'm often asked is why women-only training? And there's a couple of reasons for this. One, cultural barriers. Unfortunately, for many women growing up, they're either conditioned or been told that men are better navigators, or that a woman can't read a map. I've had many conversations with women saying, "Oh, I'm totally lost. I can't tell anything," and it's frustrating to hear that. So I wanted to make sure we approached it and said, you know, women can navigate. You can read a map and come and learn with us. The trainings that we offered were single sex. There were no men at the training, not participating or teaching. And this was intentional because sometimes women are intimidated when men are present, or some men can dominate conversations. I liken it to when a bunch of kids are playing and suddenly an adult shows up, it just changes the whole tone. So we said no men, it would just be women only. So I taught these with 2 support staff helping. Also, I found when women would show up and sometimes talk about the compass or bring a compass they've been shown, a lot of times they were given more complicated, more military precise bearing kind of instructions on how to use a compass in the past. And that was a little more complex and needed for orienteering. Also, the third one was we wanted to make it social. A lot of women prefer to do things socially with friends or in a group. And this made it much less intimidating to say, oh, I've never orienteered. How do I do this? By having something they could come with their friends for the first time, it was very lower barrier to entry. We did specifically say this would be for adults only. That was a choice just to keep the training more focused and not have a range of ages. So it was just 18 and up. And we did find people came from age 18 to mid 60s. At first, we focused on our marketing, and we made one strong rule, which we've done since 2018. Any piece of marketing, whether it's on social media or our results pages or our event announcements like this one here, it must always include at least one photo of a woman. And we also started including pictures of families as well. So those have been helpful too. I don't have data on how well this has worked. It was a little hard to measure and we had no baseline. So I can't say that this has been particularly effective in terms of recruiting women, but I can say that it makes me feel good to see that there's more representation of women out there in our marketing. So we continue to do that. And other two things we tried for marketing, one was reaching out to other local women's groups to sort of co-host, especially outdoor women-focused event groups. We tried that. It didn't lead to a huge crossover or a boost in attendance, so that wasn't a big, uh, didn't lead to a lot of increased attendance for us, so that hasn't been continued. We also tried reduced entry fees. If you came and you brought a woman who is a first timer, you would both get in free. We tried that for 2 seasons, and that also did not lead to significant increase in attendance of women. So we haven't really continued either of those, but we have continued the photos. So that was the marketing portion. What did we try in terms of the training sessions? We did refine these each year based on feedback from the participants and how the events went. We began in 2018, and the sessions there were all of these sessions were held outdoors at a local park that was on a map. So we could align things with the training with the real world, right where we were standing on the map. And we held them all times of year, all different weather. We had 6 inches of snow in one session, but people still came. The first year we did 1 hour of classroom, sort of outdoor instructions. I focused a lot more on maps in general, including USGS, because I thought more women wanted to learn just how to read a map and compass, maybe go hiking, as opposed to specifically coming for orienteering. And so we had a 1 hour instruction, and then we did a group breakout into groups, and we just did a map hike around. There were no markers, it was no real orienteering. But I was surprised with the feedback on that is that people actually did want to learn about orienteering specifically and wanted to try it. So that session changed, and the next year we had a 2-hour session, which was 1 hour of classroom instruction, how to use the map and compass, what is orienteering. And then they went out on a sort of a yellow course that was 6 controls, and that took them up to an hour to do. So they went right out and practiced, but this was just for the women only group. This was not a public event. And we did the same thing in 2020. We only had 1 session there that year. Those were all successful in bringing women to the clinics, but what was not happening was they were not showing up at local events. We're not in large numbers. Some did. But why weren't they coming to the actual events is what I was wondering. So I looked around for what other clubs were doing. And I think I stole this from Quantico, that they had a session for introduction to orienteering was 3 classes. And first was a classroom, second was a mini course just for the participants, and the third was come to a local event. So I tried that in 2021. And so they were signed up to come to the local event. They were pre-registered. I was there to meet them, check them in, talk to them about how it went. And I hoped that would reduce the barrier to them attending a local event. But I found it was 3 sessions. It was 1 per month, which may have been too spread out. But we dropped in attendance session to session, and only about half the participants actually came to the local event. So in 2022, I tried something else. This time I set up the session right before a regularly scheduled event, a local event. And so we train for about an hour and a half, answer their questions, give them a half hour or so to take a break or line things up. And then we sent them right out onto a course with the rest of everybody else. Now, this was the public course. So this way they got to see what an event was like. They got to actually get out and do it. They saw other people around. It felt like a real event. So they got to experience it. And this was very efficient, this worked very well for getting repeats. People who did this format were more likely to come back and do more events. So we continued that in 2023, and we're planning to do it later this fall in 2024. So what happened with the results of all of these trainings? One thing, we expected to increase the number of competitive women, but we didn't. So happy to be wrong. Something I learned didn't work out that way. However, we learned lots of other things. Percentage of women who came to our events increased. And so it's very visible when you come to one of our events. There's just mobs of people and obvious number of women there are higher and certainly more than I see at national events. The interesting thing we also happened was we attracted participants from a wide radius. We're located in Lawrence, Kansas, which is about 40 miles west of Kansas City. We drew people from north of Kansas City all the way down to Wichita, which is about 100 miles away. So there was a real demand for this, and women were willing to travel to come to this class. And the best thing is the results, I think. So far, we've trained 120 people. I counted how many have come to 1, 2, or 3 events. And regular, in my mind, is defined at first they had come to at least 5 events, and now they're coming regularly, routinely, several events a year, year on year after. And we have 17 women out of the 120, which is 14%. I was really happy with these numbers of women who have become full-time orienteers. So what else did we learn from this? We learned that women drive our attendance overall. Our 2-hour training class right before the first event is the most successful for repeats. We also found that they prefer to go often in groups on the recreational courses or intermediate. We're a very small club. We just offer 3 courses at our local events. Most important thing we learned, though, was how much the women control the family schedule. So they think, oh, what are we doing this weekend? What do we have time for? What are interesting for the kids or for me or for my husband? So the women who came and loved it went home and said to their husbands, to their families, to their friends, this is great. And they brought them with them when they came back. So overall, by having these women's sessions, we've really increased our overall start numbers over the years. So this chart here is 2018 when we began. Here's 2018 when we began. We had a dip, of course, in 2020 and 2021. Last year, we crossed 300 starts, which for us is huge numbers. We're a small city, 100,000 people. So to get 300 starts in a year, we're on track to break 400 this year. So in summary, I was happy to be wrong partially about whether women would become more competitive at the national level, but we learned a lot and we gained friends and volunteers, especially very helpful, and repeat orienteers. And the women's participation has increased our overall start numbers, and I'm thrilled with all of those outcomes. So, what questions do you have for me today?
Well, I'll ask, what did you all do to try to reach the women how did women find out about the clinic who were not already in orienteering?
Right, mostly Facebook ads, and again, also reaching out at first to some of the other outdoor women's groups and things and also within our own newsletter, we told people, bring a friend because word of mouth is our best advertising by far.
I see Wendy raised her hand. Let me really quickly ask you though. So if you were the one who bought the Facebook ads, I'm curious if you know how you defined like the interests. So when you were, setting those ads and you defined age and gender and the target demographic,
Mhm.
were there any particular things that you put in terms of the interests of people you were targeting that maybe we wouldn't expect?
I'm not sure if I put anything on unexpected. I can look up the specifics and get back to you because I do have one called, Women in O. I remember hiking outdoors, those are the main ones I recall.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know what you did. I've tried things like, people with interests in puzzles or national parks or homeschooling, just kind of trying to think about things that orienteers tend to like, but I'd love to know what demographics you used.
Okay. I can send that or I can include it for notes in this. Yeah.
Okay, with that, Wendy, please jump in with your question.
You're muted, Wendy.
Okay. I'm going to see.
I wonder if an admin can unmute her.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too. We can. Yeah, I don't know. John, can you unmute Wendy? Or Wendy, do you still want, or you want to put your question in the chat? While we're doing this, I may also, one of my.
I can't actually see Wendy anywhere in the list of people who are in the meeting. She may have had some technical difficulty and left, and she'll come back hopefully, and her microphone will be working. Adalia, did you just put a question in the chat?
I still see Wendy in my grid, John.
Oh. Well, until she speaks, Adalia is asking, although the program has not increased competitive participation much, what specific aspects did you do to target this demographic?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know how to specifically. I guess you could go after trail runners, but how would you pick competitive minded ones? I don't know. So I'm curious if you have a suggestion, and I'd love to know that. I should say, I mean, we did get some women. We sort of stayed level, right? Some people came in and joined, and some people left. So we have still the same number on the advanced course and competitively running. But I don't honestly know how I would go after targeting that market. But my hope was just the numbers game, right? You get enough coming, and some of them would filter out to be more interested in learning more and going to go to national events.
I've either found Wendy or she's made it back. Can you speak, Wendy? Give it a try.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Okay. Have you tried setting up a permanent course at one of your venues where people can pick up a map or download a map from the internet and just go out and find controls, or you can do instruction on that permanent course? That's something that we're trying that now, and we've had sort of mixed success with that.
We've had permanent courses for quite a while, and when the pandemic hit, we used use and lingo and control and things. So we have done that. We find that's more helpful. Actually, it's our common answer when Boy Scout groups want us to come and give a training. We say, "Oh, here's a Boy Scout. That's right. Here's a place where there's camping and a permanent course." So that's
we're having good results with the Boy Scouts too. I just wondered if it applied generally or not.
It might. I've not checked on that. I see Janet Major has put a question in, and I wanted to say Janet is one of my successes, or one of our regulars who have come and is also volunteering. So thank you, Janet. Janet helps out at our local events now and came through this program. So your question is, do you think the Lawrence, Kansas distance from most national events deters interest in competing in those events? I think it's certainly part of it. Being in the center of the country, we pretty much have to fly to most events unless you want to drive to Colorado or Chicago. Chicago hasn't an event in a while. But next year, Janet, I'm encouraging next March, Texas is having an event, so we can drive there. So let's see if we get there. I do think distance is part of it, and family obligations. You know, trying to get a family to travel on a flight to a national event is a problem. But Janet, I don't know if you want to share anything else about your thoughts on the program, if you feel like it. I don't want to put pressure on you. You could put it in the chat. But I also see Yuri has his hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, Yuri.
Hi, hello everyone. Sorry, my microphone was muted at the beginning. So Mary, I was wondering, I'm by the way a huge enthusiast of your idea. I do believe that when there are no males around who would typically suppress and critical and thinking ability of women, they release their energy and perform the best. Did you get any reflection of those women who actually commented on their feeling how orienteering goes when there are no males around who would typically make them suppress their ability to do what they want to do?
I have heard that after the orienteering itself, but during the training sessions, yes, I've heard several say, you know, oh, my husband tried to explain maps to me, and this is so much easier for me to understand. Or the kinds of questions I get. Yes, you see them speaking up, you get questions, you get a lot of interaction and discussion, and that's partly why the sessions go about an hour and a half. There's a lot of talking. And there's also a lot of helping when we do the compass, you know, we stand up and move around and we make sure everyone is understanding how to align and how to move and change direction. And there's a lot of helping each other there. So I see that kind of interaction and I hear them saying, oh, now this way I finally get it. So that's been gratifying to hear. I haven't heard anything about once they're on the course. But I also encourage when a new group couple shows up, I ask them if they want to go together or separately, and they would know how they would work together or not.
Thank you, Mary, for answering my question. I actually encourage two women who I know are doing orienteering to attend today. Unfortunately, I don't see them in attendance. Maybe they would listen to recording. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Okay, so Janet, you thought of something you want to say? Janet, maybe you're still muted, although I don't see the icon. Maybe she stepped away for a moment. Well, I have my hand up as the next in line. I'm wondering, have you found any? I'm sure you have experience giving introductory instruction to men as well. Have you found any significant differences in how explaining something works better one way with women, or any differences in the approach other than getting the men out of the way?
Not significantly, though. Of course, when we do it at a local event, it's very much shortened, right? It's 10, 15 minutes, and the point is to get them out on the course. That's an interesting question. I'm going to think about that for a minute. I don't do anything different in teaching it, but I'm listening and responding. I can tell some that say or tell me that they learned in the military or had a Boy Scout background. And so then I may emphasize the map much more than the compass. But I'm usually responding to what they're telling me. I don't prepare a different presentation. But that's an interesting question, John. You got me thinking.
I mean, if you think of anything else, maybe at the end.
Mhm.
Janet lowered her hand,
Okay.
and I don't see anyone else with any hand raised at the moment.
And Janet's
Uh,
back, I think.
oh, Janet, okay, go ahead.
I'm trying a different microphone. I guess it's working now, it looks like. I wanted to respond a little bit to what Mary was saying earlier. One thing that she didn't mention that I think helped me a lot was that I feel like I had Mary as a little bit of a mentor, and that was maybe partly because she was recovering from an injury, so she uh, helped me practice, and that was very encouraging. I like maps. I feel comfortable with maps, but the whole orienteering approach is different, as you all know. And I am probably not the demographic that you all are looking for, since I'm going to be 70 this year. But the idea that I had a mentor really helped me. We only went out 2 or 3 times, I think, um, together, but just getting over some of the complexity. And one of the things that I think is probably true for any newbie is that it's complicated. And Mary's very good, and I would encourage anybody introducing new people to the sport to tell them that you may be frustrated when you first try this, and it's okay. You just keep trying it and you'll get better. So that's what, I don't know if Mary had any other things you wanted me to comment on, but anyway,
No, whatever you wanted. Thank you, Janet. Appreciate you being here.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Claire, you
Yeah, so I was curious, going back kind of to the marketing issue for the seminars. Did you market it as orienteering? Did you market it as navigation? How, in trying to get women interested in coming to what you were offering, what sort of name did you give to your seminars? Did you try different things? Was it always the same?
Now, the first year it was sort of, map reading, navigation. I used those words. But after the first year, I only used orienteering. I might have put a little below it, read a map and navigate through the woods or something. But I only called it orienteering, and we focused on it and actually, showed how an orienteering course on the map and sent them out. So I also asked when you sign up, what do you hope to learn? And a lot of them were things more along the line. A few were just a compass or, how to read a map, but most of them said, what is orienteering? Or I've heard about orienteering. I've always wanted to try it. So it turns out there was enough name recognition out there after a while.
Cool, thank you.
I, at this point, think we'd better switch over to Stephanie so she isn't done dirty as far as the time allotted to her tonight. Stephanie, you ready to share your screen?
I am. So let's see. Here we go. All right. So hello, everybody. I am Stephanie Ross, and I'm with Orienteering Cincinnati. I've been adventure racing since 2002 and started orienteering in 2004. So that will clue you into the fact that I found orienteering as a way to learn to navigate so I wouldn't get so lost in adventure races. And quickly was hooked and started directing adventure races. Founded the Unbridled Adventure Race Series in partnership with Kentucky State Parks. I've directed a couple of USARA national championships. That's the U.S. Adventure Racing Association, which is the governing body for adventure racing in the U.S. pertinent to this forum, I founded the Women of AR campaign in 2017 and the Unbridled Women Adventure Race in 2020. You all might want to know that on Attack Point, my name is Flying Squirrel. So you can look up more about me there. So the Women of AR campaign I founded in 2017 with a mission to encourage and support all female teams to participate in the USARA National Championships. So the National Championship was founded in 2000 as a mixed gender event. Adventure racing in its origin is a mixed gender sport, which you might think, oh, they must be very equitable there. But historically, women really have been treated more as sort of mandatory gear. And men complained that it was difficult trying to assemble a mixed gender team because it was hard to find women to race with them. And so USARA opened up a team, developed an open category for the national championship in 2012. And so even though this open category was available for all male or all female teams, we found that only male teams entered the national championship in that open division between 2012 and 2016. And so the problem that created is, you'll see here, over the next 5 years, as the all-male teams increased at nationals, the number of mixed gender teams and therefore the number of women participating in nationals decreased. So we went from a situation where at least 1/3 of all participants were women, because nationals is open to 3-person teams, so at least one had to be a woman. We had at least 33% participation. Once they opened this open division and these male teams started entering, we saw the percentage of participation by women go down and the number of mixed gender teams go down. So in 2016, it was less than 19%. So my solution to that was to set up a scholarship for all female teams who would register for nationals. So in the first year, 2017, we offered $300 scholarship for a team. The team entry for nationals at the time was $900. And so we heard a little bit of blowback from male teams who said it was going to make it harder to put together the elite category mixed gender teams for nationals because we would be taking up all of the women. But in fact, what we found is in 2017, we had 4 all-female teams, 20 male teams, 40 mixed gender teams. So we had a total of 64 teams. Comparing that to the previous year, we actually had an overall increase in mixed gender teams and overall teams. So that was considered a success. The problem we had then, over the next few years, we had between 4 and 6 all-female teams for the next several years, and we weren't really getting past that 6 number, even though we had increased the number of scholarships to 10. So we had some additional donors come on board and add to the money I was putting in. And so even with offering 10 scholarships, we weren't really able to get more than 6 teams. And we identified that the obstacle to getting more teams at nationals was that our pool of women racers was too small. So much like Mary's thoughts in orienteering, trying to get more competitive women, we decided we really needed to just get more women adventure racing generally if we wanted more coming to nationals. And so my solution for that was 2 parts. The first part was the Unbridled Women Adventure Race, which is an all-women's race that I started in 2020. We've had as many as 60 racers at this race. We've tweaked it a few different ways over the years, but some of the things we found are that a Saturday event is better attended than Sunday. It's a team event. Even though some adventure races now are open to soloists, this particular race we have for teams of 2 to 3. We find, like Mary has, that beginners especially, and especially women, like to do things in groups. And so this is a team event. It's billed as beginner friendly, and when they get there, it is in fact beginner friendly. We don't try to market this as a race for, you know, experienced racers, expedition racers, that sort of thing. We are very explicit in our marketing that it's beginner friendly. It's open to ages 7 and up. And an interesting point about that, even though it's always been open to girls 7 and older, in our first 4 years, we only had 1 junior sign up for the race. And I was not happy with that. And so thinking on how we could try to get more juniors to the race this year, we set up a special adult junior category for awards purposes. And we offered a discount for junior entries. It's not a great discount. The regular early entry for women is $125. So for juniors, I made it $75. So it's a modest discount. But then we created their own category. And this year we have 4 juniors register. And I feel pretty confident that it's not merely that we offered this $50 discount. Maybe that was compelling, but I think it's more about just planting that seed, just like setting up the scholarship for nationals, sort of planted a seed in the heads of women that, you know, we can have all women teams. Just because it's historically been 1 woman and 2 men doesn't mean you can't have all women teams. The same thing here. I think just by naming it, identifying a category, especially for adult juniors, is what drove better participation this year. Our navigation challenges at the race are always geared towards learning. And so we let the women know in advance what those challenges are going to be. We give them instruction prior to the race that are specific to the challenge. We sometimes even have written instructions at the challenge station, and we let them know that in advance. So they've got a little bit of a security blanket, and it's just less intimidating to think about having to plot UTM coordinates or do pace counting or whatever it might be if they know they're going to have that help at the station or the ability to skip that point. We always have women-specific tees. I think if you want women to feel welcome at your event, you need to have women-specific shirts because we're not shaped like men. We have vegetarian options for our banquet. Statistics that I read say that there are 3 times more women than men who identify as vegetarian. And we always get thank yous from, we always have vegetarians other than me at the race, and they always express a lot of appreciation that we were thoughtful enough to have a vegetarian option. And then we do post-race surveys. We ask them what we're doing right and what we can do better. The second part of our solution to the problem of getting more women into the sport is we evolved the campaign into a group. And so the Women of AR Facebook group, I started in 2021. It's a private group on Facebook. We do allow men in the group. We think that men are an important component of supporting women in the sport, whether it's a husband or a dad or a teammate. And we make it explicit in our information about the group that there are men in the group. But nevertheless, the men tend to kind of stay in the background. They stay pretty quiet, and there's a lot of really great conversation and very frank and open conversation among the women in the group. And I think that's because it's a private group, and so it feels safe and secure and comfortable. And we've got over 1,400 members in that group now since 2021. We initially started with an online mentoring program using Facebook. At the time had a tab here that was a mentorship tab. And we used that to try to connect with women online. It was marginally successful. I mentored about 8 women or so. You know, and I think they certainly felt like it was helpful, and it was nice to have someone identified who could answer questions. But we've still got the mentors identified on there, but we don't actively engage in that program anymore because we just didn't find that it was all that useful. So the things that we've tried that have, I think, really grown the group over the last year really have been 2 programs that have been designed to move our engagement from an online presence to real world, and also to sort of amplify the message beyond, you know, just me on there driving the conversation. And we would do contests and giveaways and things like that to get the group going. But now that it's sort of got this critical mass, because it's set up as a group rather than a page, it sort of feeds itself. The group members talk to each other, and so it requires less of my input. And then in the real world, our 2 programs are the Ambassador Program And so the ambassador program, we invited women from the group to apply, and we selected 8 ambassadors from across the US. We tried to focus on diversity of ages, size, and abilities. It wasn't about identifying the top adventure racers. It was about identifying people who would be really great spokespeople for the group and who would be engaging and who had good social media presence and who went to a lot of events and would just have a great personality that would draw people into the group. So this is Heather Hart. She's one of our ambassadors. They all got these jackets that say ambassador and have their names on them so people recognize them at events. And they got a very small stipend, like $150, just to kind of help cover costs if they were to rent a picnic shelter or whatever. And what they've done is they are setting up social programs. So like they had a potluck before the Buff Betty Adventure Race, and they just sent an invitation out and women showed up and had an opportunity to connect with the group. They set up training opportunities, and I've been really pleased because a number of them have taken up my suggestion, which was you don't need to go out and set up this whole training opportunity yourself. You can just say, hey, Orienteering Kansas has an event coming up in 3 weeks, and we're going to be there an hour beforehand to provide free instruction. And so I've had, I think 3 different ambassadors have done that with their local orienteering club. So they're, using that local orienteering meet as the event. And what they're doing is simply using that as an opportunity to connect with women, provide them instruction, and then they go out and do the orienteering event. So it's been a great way to try to help drive people to orienteering meets and a great way for our ambassadors to get some instruction out there and connect with women in the real world. They've also created some social media content. I linked this if someone wanted to view the little video reel that one of our ambassadors made that's about adventure racing, but it's about 3 minutes long, so I'll skip it for now and tell you that the last thing from this program, our race team. So the top women's team at Nationals last year had the opportunity to be designated as the Women of AR official race team for 2024, and they received a stipend. We partnered with a lot of race companies around the country who donated free or reduced race entries. And so the team is racing under, our banner, and they're getting free entries. They're creating a lot of great marketing for the races that contributed, and then just creating a really nice sense of community around the group, and again, serving that outreach component. So it's basically been about getting a lot more women rowing the boat along with us to let people know about the group. So I think that these 2 programs, which we just implemented over the last year, have been wildly successful in driving our numbers in the group and also driving participation at races. I don't have figures for other races outside of Nationals, but anecdotally, I know that a lot of the race directors are telling me that they're seeing record numbers of women at their races. So I know it's been successful. As far as Nationals go, this year, 2024, we have 15 all-female teams. So we went from never having more than 6 to this year having 15 all-female teams at Nationals, 44 mixed gender teams. We've got 81 teams, and that's actually gone up by 1 more since I prepared this slide. We've got 82 teams as of today, which is a record for Nationals. And you can see it's the all-women teams who are driving those numbers. So super excited about that. Some of the takeaways that I've put together for orienteering: if you want more women at your events, invite them to come. And when you do that, word of mouth, as Mary said, I agree with her 100%, word of mouth is most important. So you might think about incentivizing your club members to invite their friends. You might do that through a contest, through reduced entry fees for your club members if they bring a friend. Simply recognition at your award ceremony at the end of the season about club members who brought the most new people in. So think about making it a friendly competition among club members, or otherwise recognizing them for bringing new people. Designate club ambassadors, give them, promotional materials that they can take out to the events they go to. If you've got someone who goes to tons of running events, give them postcards they can take with them. I think with the ambassadors, you know, those people always had the ability to go out and tell women about our group. But when we gave them a microphone and said, go out and tell women about the group, and you can tell them you're an ambassador, you know, it just really, they felt invested in the group. And we really saw a big increase in numbers once that started happening. So, you know, give them that title and people suddenly feel really invested. And I think you'll see them work a lot harder to try to get the word out. Partner with women-specific groups, discounts, free clinics for your partner groups, things like that. You know, you probably know if you call up REI or your local outdoor store and tell them that you would like some space to put on a free navigation clinic for women at their store, I can assure you they will not only be happy to give you the free space, they will also be happy to promote it and send it out to their email list, their distribution groups. You know, outdoor retailers are always looking for ways to reach women and to get women into their store. So take advantage of that and let them help you with your marketing. I agree with Mary that having images of women in your marketing materials and all kinds of diverse people in your marketing materials is a good idea. And then when they arrive, you need to make them feel welcome. So women-only events, it's certainly true that, you know, there are women who come racing on an all-women's team in an event that has men and women feels very different. Racing in an all-women race feels very different. It's just a very different vibe. And we hear that from women all the time. They talk about how the other women in the race helped them. And it just feels different. Women instructors and meet directors, again, sends that signal that women have a place at the table and that women know how to navigate, know how to set courses. And that's a great message to send out. Having group categories for beginners, and that's true for women and men who are beginners. You know, even though orienteering is historically a solo sport, I think having group categories and recognizing those groups in your awards at the end or your standings at the end of the season is a great idea to encourage beginners. I think having a designated time for free instruction at meets. We at OSIN, we always say, you know, free instruction available anytime. I think we've been more successful in getting people to participate in that when we have had a designated window for instruction, which we did during COVID when we were having people sign up for start times. I think people are more likely to take you up on free instruction if there's a designated time. So they don't feel like they're going to have to walk up and say, I'm a newbie, I have no idea what I'm doing, please give me instruction. If they feel like this is a set time and there will be other beginners there, they're going to be more likely to attend, and it's one less obstacle to them coming to your meet. Women's specific clothing. When we go to Europe for any of the larger national championships, you know, they have babysitting tents. I'm not saying you need to do that for a small local meet. Most of us don't have the resources for that, but certainly for larger events, it's something to think about. And then lastly, ask them what they want. Survey the women who come to your events, survey your current membership, find out what they want from you, what you're doing right, what you can do better. And yeah, I think that's all I've got. Thank you. And I will also be happy to take questions. Or we can go back and ask Mary more questions.
I put this in the chat, but I'll just say it again, that I think that ambassador program is genius. I love that. And for a couple of reasons, it spreads it out. You get different inputs and it takes some of the workload off you.
That's really been a huge part of it. It's made it sustainable because, you know, having a one-woman show is not sustainable and it's not going to grow that way. You know, it's really grown because, and they've brought so many different ideas as well, you know, things that I wouldn't have thought of, they've brought to the table. So it's been really great, very successful program. Yuri, thank you for the compliment on Unbridled Women. I guess credit goes actually to the Commonwealth of Kentucky because they did this whole branding thing several years back where they came up with this slogan, Unbridled Spirit. And that's where the whole Unbridled Adventure Race name came from, which now is the Unbridled Women Race. But thanks. This is our logo, our Unbridled Women logo.
While waiting for others to raise their hand, during our rehearsal, you've got your Unbridled Women Race. I was surprised to find out that, I mean, we've got the Buff Betty race in Virginia, that apparently those are the only two exclusively female adventure races you know of ongoing in the country?
Those are the only ones I know of in the US. I will tell you that New Zealand has an all-women's adventure race called the Spirited Women Adventure Race. They have to cap the field at like, I used to know that 1,632 teams. It's women, sorry, not teams, women. 1,632. I don't know why it's this random number. 408 teams. Does that math add up? It's teams of 4 women, 408 teams, 1,632 women, and they have that race twice a year, and it sells out every time.
In a country that has like a population of what, 4 million or so?
I know, not a lot. How you explain that, how you account for it, I really, really can't.
I'm just curious, do you have any idea why? I mean, this seems like a market failure. Like, if people organized more such races, they would probably be successful up to, I mean, if there was one every weekend, I'm sure you'd saturate the demand, but.
Yeah, no, I don't know why. I think, no, I don't. I think it's probably, well, I mean, it's hard to do, putting on adventure races. Number one, you don't make any money at it. I mean, when we retire, I'm going to have to stop putting on adventure races because we can't afford it. So you don't make any money at it, and it's a lot of effort. Well, I mean, think about how hard it is to try to get course setters for orienteering, right? That's one leg of an adventure race. So, there are just a lot of obstacles out there that make it difficult to put on adventure races generally, let alone a women only race. And I think there's probably a perception that, there aren't enough women who want to race. So,
Did you see, I think Adelia put a question into the chat.
Yeah, actually,
that's a really interesting question.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that earlier today too. I think it would be lovely and ideal. I think in the immediate short term, it's not practical for Orienteering USA because we're struggling to get national events put on for anyone. So,
sorry, in case anyone blinked and missed it, she was asking whether there should be women-only national orienteering events.
Thank you. Sorry, John. Yeah. So I think it would be cool to try someday. What do you think, Stephanie?
I like the idea of it. I wonder, my sense is that once you start doing, more competitive orienteering meets and, national level orienteering meets, it feels a little less important that it be a women only race. We obviously are only competing against women, and because it's a solo sport, it feels to me like I don't feel at all intimidated going to a national orienteering event because there are men there, right? Like it just feels, because we've got our own categories, it feels and it's a solo event anyway. And maybe just because we've already reached a certain level of competency by the time we do it, that I don't know, my personal sense is that it doesn't feel like it.
I mean, maybe orienteering isn't big enough for that to be viable. Right. I mean, there are plenty of women-only road races.
Yeah. And I like Stephanie's point. I mean, when you get to an actual event, you are competing only against the other women, right? So, yeah. and you often end up talking to your peers and stuff. So you're talking. So yeah, I don't feel intimidated by the men at national events either. So I would say that. Adelia, have you traveled to a national event? Oh, good. Great.
And, well, and I wonder what your thoughts are. Like, do you feel like that would be like you and your peers would appreciate having a national event where it was only women?
No, I'm just reading her chat. She said she's been to several national events, but I
Yeah.
don't know if she's.
I can see, I think what I can imagine like really enjoying would be sort of a women's outdoor adventure festival where orienteering was one component of that, and you had other, well, and in fact, I've put together women's outdoor weekends where we did orienteering along with other events. But yeah, you're talking specifically about like competitive national orienteering events. Yeah, I don't know. It is a really interesting. I suspect that you would probably get to know the other women orienteers a lot better. You know, that's one thing that I think I don't really feel like I get to know other women orienteers all that well at national meets.
Just to say, Adelia is modest. She's actually one of our better juniors. I believe she would have had a quite good chance of being on the jaywalk team, but I believe she had a summer internship or something else she had to do in the summer that
I'm just
interfered.
reading her chat. She says, I guess to me it's not extremely important. I agree that the women categories are good enough at separating it out. Also, I usually travel with my dad, so that might make it more difficult to participate. And yes, thank you, John. Yeah, great job. No, I'd love to hear your viewpoint too, especially as a younger person, you know, because that's another group that we need to recruit more at the national level.
Yeah, I hope this is followed by a forum on how to recruit more young people. In fact, that was part of my motivation in setting up the Women of AR campaign and trying to get more women into adventure racing, because as you noted, Mary, I think it's absolutely true that the moms set the schedule. And if you get more moms adventure racing, you get more kids adventure racing and orienteering. And so, you know, I don't have any children of my own, so it's really hard to try to reach out to young people. I had a thought of a club called O Girls that would sort of pick up on girls as they finish the Girls on the Run program. I went to a Girls on the Run race with a friend who was a coach for that program, and we did the race and it was super fun and the girls were so excited and they've all trained up for this 5K. And I said, so what do they do next? And she said, well, they're kind of finished. That's it. They do the 5K and then they're done. And I thought, oh, so Girls on the Run is a club, Janet, that it's school based. So they're always, I think, centered, you know, they're based out of a school and they've got one or two coaches, and the girls practice and they work up their running, build up, and then they do a 5K. So yeah, it's basically that. It's about sort of empowering girls and getting them to run this 5K as their goal race. And then they're done. And I thought, oh my gosh, what a golden opportunity for orienteering if we could partner with Girls on the Run. And as those girls finish up that 5K, now we take them and put a map in their hands and teach them to orienteer. Wouldn't that be a really cool follow on to that program? So I had this great idea for this club called Oh Girls. I had a logo in my head and everything, but I don't really have any way. I don't have any connections to any school groups or anything like that. And, you know, maybe that's what I'll do when I retire. But if one of you want to take that idea and run with it, please do.
Just to say, you edited it out from what you showed during rehearsal, but you had the picture, I remember, of the 3 generation of one family adventure racing team.
That was still in there. That the Birth Bark Generations team.
Okay, you just didn't speak about.
Yeah.
By the way, Mary, I'm curious. What do you consider the cutoff for how old you have to be an adult that's allowed to do your course?
Yeah, I mean, for my training, I said 18 and up.
Okay.
It's totally arbitrary, I admit, but
I mean, I would have thought like 15 or 16-year-olds are probably old enough to do the same training that the adults would, but you have to put the cutoff somewhere, I guess.
that's right. And I would just like to take the opportunity that you did put a nice comment in the chat that I just like to get on the recording, that I meant to stress some more, that one of the other benefits we got of some of our regulars that come have also become key volunteers. And that's been really helpful for us. So another benefit to the club of bringing in women and extra members, and they're turning into key volunteers. Very helpful.
So with that, we're a couple of minutes over our theoretical end time, which we do not strictly enforce, but if anyone wants to come up with another question or two right now, we'll do that.
Well, Jean posted a question that I would love to know the answer to. What's the percentage of women orienteering on the national level?
Well, as I said, at least the last time I checked in 2018, it was 31%, at least who are showing up in the rankings. That's the number I used.
Okay.
I haven't looked at it recently. I don't suspect it's changed dramatically.
And yeah, if Stephanie or Mary has any other closing comment you'd like to throw in before we end. Shaking of head. If okay, with that, thanks to both of you and to everyone who attended and participated. A housekeeping note: our normally scheduled August forum would fall in the middle of the North American Championships, like on an evening when people would probably be moving on from Kingston to the Ottawa area. We're thinking attendance would be bad, so we probably are going to go on hiatus for August. Maybe we will organize some kind of special post-NAOC forum, do some post-race analysis or something. Stay tuned to ClubNet and Facebook or USA's Facebook to see if anything pops up in that vein. But if not, next forum will be in September on the second Tuesday of the month as usual. We have planned on that being a follow-up on the LiveLox demo that we did back in December. Now that a lot of people have had more experience using it, we can get into some more advanced topics. No, good night, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot.